Hi everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of my RollerCoaster Tycoon Deluxe series. In this one, we'll be going through Diamond Heights. As you may have noticed, there was a previous score when I loaded the game there. The reason for that is that I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with this one. And so I made a couple attempts. And the first attempt, I just came in and kind of winged it and decided to see what I could accomplish. And I was pretty happy with the playthrough. I did well in the scenario, but at about year 6, I decided to pull the plug on that particular recording, as by then I had sort of gotten like a design aesthetic and kind of an idea of what I wanted to do at Diamond Heights. And while what I did in the first one was nice, and honestly, like I probably could have published it, and everyone would have been like, "Oh yeah, that's nice" or whatever. It just didn't really live up to the quality that I thought that I could probably get out of it. So I decided to do it again. And so this time around, as you know, I usually don't speed up the setup of the park, the initial configuration, and I don't start the time lapse until I start building. However, in the case of Diamond Heights, I decided to speed the setup up by 4 times, as I did spend quite a bit of time just configuring the rides and prices and getting everything exactly how I wanted it. Because money isn't really a big problem in this scenario, I decided that I would add a couple additional restrictions or challenges to this playthrough. And those are that I, first of all, will not change the existing color of the rides that already exist in the park, nor will I change their configuration, though I may put pieces of track underground, though whatever piece of track I put underground will be the exact same piece of track that was above ground. And the final restriction that I added for this particular playthrough is that I will not change the default color of the rides. So whatever ride I build, the color it gives me, that's the color I'm going with for the ride in this playthrough. With one exception, as I wanted to use the tent entrance for a particular ride, and the ride just happened to give me all black for the random color, and I just couldn't make it work, and I really wanted something else. So there is one time that I do change the color, but it wasn't really for the color of the ride. In fact, the ride in question itself doesn't really change all that much as a result. It was for the entrance. Now the time lapse has begun. So what I decided to go with for this particular playthrough was castles. And the reason I chose castles was because there's a bunch of different hills, and I thought it'd be kind of neat if there was like a bunch of different castles, and then a variety of terrain kind of separating them. Going for like kind of a, I don't know, maybe Game of Thrones type look. Although I can't do winter, so winter is not coming in this case. But the other reason I chose castles is because I can use the type of castle buildings. They're quite large and sprawling, and so they allow me to easily adapt to the large number of rides that are within this scenario. And the final reason that I chose castles is because we do get the mining town and Roman theming kits within this scenario, both of which have several different elements that are useful within castles, though I don't rely too heavily on them and mostly stick to the generic stuff. just like barrels and things like that. I don't use the Roman columns at all, as I don't want anything in this to be too Roman per se. I do use the little house a couple times, but I really wanted to not have a Roman theme or a like mine town theme, though I do use the mining stuff a little bit more than the Roman stuff over in the other area. The way that I decided to divide the scenario map is that I would mostly concentrate my development on the close side, although I do start here with the small castle that I felt would be a good start because I could put the Ferris wheel and the boat hire, which I once again utilize the boat hire water transport strategy in this playthrough. The buildings that I go for in this scenario are bigger, but there's less of them. So I aim to go for like sort of a big building and then lots of open terrain separated by, and then another big building. And as a result of this means that the buildings are a lot more complex in this playthrough than they were in Leafy Lake. So I utilize like the multi-station buildings a lot in this scenario. In fact, there's one building that I build later on that has 3 rides, all intricate, going through it, the entrances and stuff. So I really make use of trying to maximize what I do with each building, as I didn't want to build very many of them. The ones I do build are quite large and sprawling. This is one of the smaller castles. I decided to put the largest, more complicated castle at the entrance, but I don't build it until a little bit later, as I needed to get the rides going. And I had to kind of balance this play between actually building what I wanted, expanding the ride infrastructure, and I did spend a lot of time managing the park because of the vandalism and things like that. Of course, that's all cut. So there are huge amounts of time that are missing, but within that time, I didn't build anything. I was just basically paying down the loan and going around and fixing vandalism and managing the park in other ways. For the large castle, I take up almost the entire first island. I pretty much transformed the entire thing into a castle. However, the other parts of the islands, I tried to keep a little bit more natural, and the furthest part of the island out near the mine car coaster thing, or yeah, like the mini one, the Mobius one, I leave that pretty much untouched. I just add more forest and stuff like that. And so what I was kind of thinking with the layout was, I would have the castles kind of near the entrance and to the like north of the map and the southwest of the map, and then to moving out to the east of the map, there would be one more castle, and then I wanted it to be like kind of like the slums where the peasants would be, maybe a little bit of piracy in there, and the forests and all that stuff. So I tried to give a good variety of terrain this playthrough. The way I built the castles was quite a bit different than the way that I was building the Leafy Lake buildings. Because castles do end up occluding quite a bit of their internals, I decided the best way to build castles would be like kind of from the ground up. So I would build the base of the castle, then I would fill in the internals of the castle and decorate, and basically I wanted the inside completely finalized before I built up the surrounding walls. This area that's to the west of the entrance, right beside the castle, I thought would kind of be like a little castle garden or castle yard area. So I don't loop any additional paths into this area. It's just self-contained, and I thought it would be like a good area, kind of like for the kids and stuff. Though I don't put another merry-go-round. I don't want to duplicate rides if I can avoid it. Instead of a roller coaster, I decided I would go for a car ride in this area to kind of put a tracked ride and give it a bit of a border. Finally, I wanted the haunted house in this section. I thought it would look pretty cool if it was just on the other side of that little pond, with some big trees and stuff all around it, and then, with the train running right beside it and things. I thought that was a good spot for it. On this side of the castle, I really wanted to expand on some of the ideas that I had introduced in Leafy Lake, in particular the bridge. With Leafy Lake, because the lake was smaller than I anticipated, the bridge wasn't as grand as I wanted, and so we had this has been rectified now, and I create a grand bridge that goes between the two castles on the close side. I decided to start this castle early as I wanted to build the roller coaster, as I was running out of time to reach the objective, and I really just needed one more roller coaster, and that would have put me comfortably over the 20,000 park value for the objective. So I decided to just jump ahead a little bit, half start this castle, and construct the first iteration of a suspended roller coaster, which is one of my favorite roller coasters to build in this game. And I've actually ridden on one of these in real life. They're quite something. So smooth though. Like compared to the Mindbender that we had here in Edmonton, which was very intense, but it was like super rickety and the G's were crazy and it would like strain your neck. In comparison, when I rode, I think it was at Busch Gardens when I rode one of these, the ride was just incredibly smooth. Like I was just dumbfounded at how smooth it was. Like even during like the inversions and stuff, like you could barely feel it. Like the center of gravity was so perfect that you were just sitting comfortably in your seat and just everything was just flying around you. So there we go. The scenario objective has been achieved. Unfortunately, I didn't get to put my name in for this one, but like I said, the first scenario, I did complete it. I just decided to pull the plug on it, and I actually did a better job on the scenario portion of the playthrough in the first playthrough. But when it came to the resulting park, this one is 1,000 times better, just in terms of architecture, design, the thought that I put into it. I actually came into this playthrough with a plan with the second playthrough, and the results are different. Like I did have this castle in the first playthrough, but it wasn't nearly as complex. I didn't have the second level, and it just wasn't nearly as good looking and cool. It bare bones. I thought it would be pretty cool having the log flume in that sort of like pool with a nice bridge going over it. I really like bridges in this one. I try to put bridges everywhere. Only where they make sense though. Like I don't want to have like big arcing paths over top of everything. I want them to be bridges that, you look at that particular piece of land or where the bridge is and you go, yeah, there's a bridge there, because it just makes sense that there would be a bridge there. I was worried about guests getting lost in my castle design, but ultimately it didn't seem to cause any problems. There was a few times that I would cause havoc while I was building and mess with their pathfinding temporarily, and which would cause them to get lost. And there was a few times where guests that went all the way to the back of the park would decide that they couldn't find the entrance by the time they got to the entrance. So it'd be like literally they're just walking into the castle to get to the entrance of the park, and they're like complaining that they can't find it yet. They're on their way. So I was quite surprised and happy that I didn't have to tone down the path network inside the castle, as it does get quite complex. There's 3 different levels, and there's paths in and outside of the walls. When I plant flower gardens, I always try to plant them in a place that the handyman will get to water them. Although setting your handyman to mow the grass also allows them to leave the paths, which means that they can encounter flower beds that are not next to the path. It's one of their, I guess you could say, maybe a hidden ability. So there is an additional side effect to setting your handyman to mow grass, and that they will, by wandering all over the park, they can also water flower beds that are not next to the path. Generally, the configuration I use for setting up my staff is I will have one handyman per 100 guests plus one. So like there's always, I want one handyman at 0 guests, and then every 100 adds one. And for mechanics and security guards, I usually do one for every 200 guests. And for entertainers, I will do one for every 400 guests, plus any super long queues that I feel need a entertainer dedicated to them. I probably spent half this playthrough on this castle. Worth it though, it was fun. It was a nice little piece of architecture to build, and it allowed me to kind of implement some of the grander look to what I wanted for the entrance for Leafy Lake. Like kind of I wanted like a sort of like an ascending ramp system up to the second level, of the food court there, but that just didn't happen in Leafy Lake. There just wasn't the space. I just couldn't get that stuff to work when I was playing with building designs. And with this one on the east side of the castle there, that was kind of what I wanted for Leafy Lake. Something quite grand. With with in the case of the castle, it's reversed though, because you descend from the castle to the bridge, whereas in Leafy Lake's case, it would have been that you ascend up to the bridge. But potato potato. It's effectively the same thing in terms of the aesthetic of what I wanted, like sort of this descent to this grand approach to a grand bridge that you then cross over into a new land. I tried to design the insides of the castle so that everything was visible and there was something to look at inside of it. That was something that I kind of failed on in the first playthrough, was the insides of the castles just were not that interesting. Now we're building I'm building, not we. Sorry, this whole YouTube thing, sometimes I'm talking about you and me in the present tense, and sometimes I'm talking about things I have done in the past. And in this case, I'm talking about something I've done in the past. Yeah, this is sort of what I'm getting at here. I had the log flume in there, and I had to do something with that, so I was like, oh, well, that's just going to become the center. And that bridge is the Grand Bridge, although it's not quite grand yet. I do come back to that bridge when I branch back over to the second castle that I had on that island, but I don't get back over there for a while, as there was other stuff I wanted to get to first. When I first played RollerCoaster Tycoon, I got to Diamond Heights, was so excited for this level. When I realized that you could play the scenario that it was showing you when you first loaded the game, because of course when I first played this, there was no DLCs yet, or expansion packs as they were then called. So I had the original game without the expansion packs, and I remember those expansion packs coming out. And so when you loaded the original game without the expansion packs, the very first scene that it would show you is that log flume in Diamond Heights. And it spends a good deal of time going through the rides in Diamond Heights, and it's still in the intro if you wait long enough and get through all the DLC. It goes in reverse order, so the original game introduction stuff is at the end of the introduction video. But man, I was excited for this one. It was so cool. And then sort of like, as I played this game more and more over the years, I sort of started to dread coming to this scenario, because, your hands really are kind of tied coming into it unless you remove all of the rides, which of course is an option. You can just remove everything that's there, although it leaves you with a incredibly pot-marked landscape due to all of the tunnels and stuff that the rides use. But it's an approach that you can use. But if you don't use that approach, it really doesn't give you a whole lot. And the funny thing is that island off to the east of the entrance is great for building, but it's incredibly difficult to branch to. You have to either put a really ugly path coming from the slide in the form of a bridge. But that's not a good path to have, because in terms of pathfinding, it's really far from the entrance, and it's facing north, which means that it's facing towards the entrance. And so, given that guests can't see enough junctions ahead to see the entrance, they may mistakenly think that the entrance is that way, and then they end up in a whole section of the park that does not lead to the entrance. It actually, then they have to reverse and then go to the right and then across up and to the front. And of course, you can branch over the log flume and stuff like that. And that was another reason why I wanted to pick castles, was castles provide a lot of nice infrastructure to bridge to. Like you'll notice on both sides of the castle, I hide the descent to the lower levels within the castle walls. Well, I mean, on the one side, it's on the outside of the castle wall, but it's still like integrated into the castle wall. And then there's also a whole network inside the castle walls that allow guests to get to the upper level and stuff like that. And so by choosing a castle, I sort of avoid those huge arcing pathways that you end up having to build if you want to just bridge over to that island. Up and over the log flume, or you can dig underground too. I've done it that way a few times in playing the scenario, where I would dig under the log flume and then pop out on that hill with a lower bridge than if I had dug under it. But I thought that this castle approach really nicely solved the problem for me, because I hate both of those other solutions. They're both ugly. In fact, it also allowed me to have an entrance. That's another problem I find with this particular scenario, is because of the train and the log flume's positions, it's really hard to get like a nice entrance in there. I mean, yeah, you can throw some flowers and stuff. And so by putting a castle, it's sort of like, well, if I can't have a nice little entrance, I'll just turn the entire first island into the entrance. And I think that has an interesting effect overall. I tried to make something out of all of the different holes and stuff that Chris Sawyer, I assume it's Chris Sawyer that made this scenario. I'm not exactly certain who made the scenario, but I would assume it's Chris Sawyer. That's another thing of why I kind of dread coming into this one, is that like his rides are really cool and stuff, but the mess that he leaves of the landscape, it leaves a lot to be desired. You've got like just things like holes popping up like pieces of dirt and stuff in blocky form, and there's no time whatsoever was spent clearly making nice tunnels and things like that. And so I try to go and fix those up in one way or another, or turn them into something or something. In this case, with the one for the junior roller coaster there, I just made it a little cabin, just down by the water there in front of the castle. I was ready to start expanding the park, but the first thing I needed was the second transport ride, or the first transport ride, depending how you look at it, given that I haven't done any others, and when I do another one, it's going to be a boat hire, which isn't really a transport ride anyway. But I wanted to get the chairlift set up to transfer guests between that adjacent island and the second island with the roller coaster. So that way they don't have to walk all the way around the big lake. Like they get a kind of a direct path. And both the boat hire and the chairlift were gonna send guests to the same location. So like doubling up the capacity basically. Once I had those built, it did make a big improvement on just the overall ability for guests to disperse throughout the park. Up until then, I had a lot of them in the castle, the main castle there. They'd all just sort of walk around in circles in the castle, and not very many, like maybe 25% of my guests or something were within my front entrance. But once I had the various transport rides sending them to different places, they seemed to stay out in the park longer. I decided I would put the transport ride on top of that hill, and so for access, I put a tunnel through the hill, and then that way I could attach the entrance and exit paths into the underground tunnel and not have a bunch of ugly paths on top of the hill. I also wanted a little train house or something, like kind of like a wooden train tunnel. So I decided to combine the train tunnel and the chairlift entrance building. Perhaps one of the more annoying aspects of this scenario is that all of the ground texture is that like nice lawn grass, and the scenario terrain just does not fit that type of terrain texture at all. So I end up replacing most of it with the dirt grass combination. Though I do keep a little bit, and I use a little bit for dithering here and there, and outside the castles and stuff, I like to give them nice lawns, but for the most part, the majority of it does get replaced in this one. I use a lot of the same strategies that I use to decorate the train in Dynamite Dunes with this train as well. I don't add any stops or anything for the train. I felt that my additional transport rides were fine. As I said, I wanted a nice big grand bridge, and I thought that that sort of little island before the train track made for a great spot for a nice big grand bridge support. I of course then wanted to create some interaction between my Wispy Wasp roller coaster and the bridge support. Yeah, I called it Wispy Wasp because it's the colors that I got were yellow and black. So as I said, I was just going with all the default colors as an additional challenge, and I actually think the defaults it gave me for the most part fit pretty good. I just happened to luck out and get like reds and red areas and green areas, and the few times that it didn't, I made it work. Aside from that one black. Because this roller coaster was yellow, I decided to actually make this castle yellow as well. And so that's something that's a little bit different through with this playthrough as opposed to my other ones, is that I allowed the default colors to kind of guide my other choices in terms of theming. Same thing with the Ferris wheel. I made that castle red because the Ferris wheel I got was red. At first, I was a little disappointed with this castle when I had first constructed it, but I'm actually, after I got to the point where I decorated the outside and put a food court and got the chairlift connected and all that stuff, I'm actually really happy with how this area turned out. But at first, I was a little disappointed, and I thought, maybe I should make this castle bigger and have it kind of consume some of the roller coaster as well. But ultimately, I think it's better that I didn't do that. I wanted to have like a really nice boardwalk type look to the side of this castle. So I put brick and stuff under all the paths, and then you're walking up against the side of the castle, and once it's done, it has I think a pretty interesting grand look to it. That's really what I was going for in this area. It was like sort of bigger than anything I had done yet. I changed this roller coaster a few times now that I had passed the scenario, as I wasn't quite happy with that initial design, but I had really just kind of run with it, as I really just needed the park value from the roller coaster, and I didn't care too much about it yet. I knew I would get back to it later when I got to this castle. I was quite happy with the end result of this roller coaster design as well. It comes in for a nice little swoop over the food court there. It's got double loops, it's got a quarter pipe, it's got a couple twists and a half loop. The only thing I really didn't use in this was a large half loop. And actually, the roller coaster, in the first playthrough, I built a suspended roller coaster here as well. It was a different design though, and I don't think the design was as good, but I did use a large half loop in that design. But I think this design's better. It's longer, it's more elegant. It doesn't have any like really weird, parts to it that look off. Like you'll notice that in a lot of my playthroughs is I don't like to do things like putting steep to chain to steep to chain to save space and stuff, because it gives you like that weird sort of like humpback chain lift. And it's not natural. Like, you're never gonna see that in a real theme park, you know. Like, yeah, you can do it in the game and it works and stuff. It's just, but you're never gonna see it. It's not functional. It's not practical. It would be a maintenance nightmare, you know. And so it probably wouldn't be very safe, all things considered. And so I try to stay away from like weird things like that like, you know, the game allows you to do, but you just, from a practical standpoint, you just wouldn't see it in real life. Although, if anyone can show me a humpback roller coaster in real life, I would love to see it. This is one of the few areas in the park that I gave like a nice garden. I wanted the yellow castle to have a very bright green front to it. I think the contrast between the green and the yellow in this particular area is really striking. I'm mixed on which castle I like better. Honestly, like I like the big castle because of how complex it is. It's got the multiple levels and it's really cool that way. I mean, this castle is basically just a glorified ride station, right? Like there isn't much into, like, even on the inside. It's just a queue. That's it. That's all there is. There's nothing more. But with the addition of the outside and then the addition of the boardwalk and then what comes later with the addition of the chairlift building and the dock building, I don't know, it's a close tie, you know. I really like them both. Now I'm building the dock building that I would also connect the chairlift to. This is the building I was talking about that has the three separate rides connected to it. It will have two boat hires and a chairlift. Which I mean, yeah, the boat hires are the same thing on two sides, right? But they're different ones. But what I thought was really neat about it is that I actually managed to get all, you know, six pathways independently going through there, and so in the end it looks pretty cool. There's like six different paths coming out of this particular building all in a row. I wanted this building to be like sort of a castle fort dock, um, kind of like those you know, Imperial pirate Lego sets. You know, the ones with the you know, not the ship, but the ones where you'll see like sort of like a little Imperial fort or something on a island or something. That's sort of the look I was going for with this particular building. The pirate ship I did first, really just to get a ride and the park value improving. Though I did know that I wanted that area to be an island, and sort of like a deserty island, as we'll get to pretty shortly here. But I wasn't exactly sure how the blending would work, like how much of the island would be desert, and then how that would transition, and what the surroundings would be. So I pretty much just left that alone, and that's why I didn't touch it theming wise. Was I figured that by the time that I got there, the theming around the island would kind of give me an idea of what it should look like, and that worked out as expected. I then decided that in the middle of this, I wanted to have yet another boat hire ride. Though, at first, I was going to kind of like branch a path into the lake itself. And then I thought, oh, it'd be kind of neat if there was like a tank, you know, and the tank had water as well, but the water level in the tank is actually one tile higher than the water in the surrounding lake, and then I just branched the paths over the boat hire. I thought that was a pretty neat way to make use of that space. Finally, I felt I had enough surrounding the island that I could do the island and sort of complete the area. Next, I wanted like a river rapids and another boat hire going off into the distance. I didn't want to put too much path though, so I was basically just going to make the station the furthest point that this connection of path would have. And then the only way to get out into that, sort of the furthest parts of the park would be either on the train, on a canoe, or in a river rapid boat. The river rapids is really where I use the mine town stuff the most. In this area here, I thought it just fit perfectly. I wanted the canoe ride to go all the way around the lake and give a nice view of everything, as well as have a little bit of interaction with the river rapids. Once again, I utilized the combined station building with a canoe ride and the river rapids sharing the building. I wasn't too concerned about unique building designs in this one, as I wasn't intending to have very many buildings. So I don't vary very much. I mean, like, there isn't really any duplicate buildings. It's just that I didn't try to do anything special over what I've done in other scenarios. Aside from the castles, those are probably unique to this scenario. For the river rapid, I wanted it to go kind of off into the distance, slide by deep woods sort of cabin setup, run alongside the train, come out into the lake, and then return to station. I usually don't like to have turns in the water. As you can, you sort of get like that edge, which is, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense really how you could have that. But in this case, I just wanted to get the track where I wanted it, and that was a little bit more important to me than trying to descend into the water and avoid a turn. I thought it was pretty neat having the canoe run right up alongside the river rapid, but in the opposite direction. So it'd be like, you're like just going down the lake, and there you got someone going the other way within arm's reach, basically. I almost put a water slide in this area, but I felt that the path network would ultimately be ugly. Handyman would have a hard time getting into this area. They were already having an issue getting to the far end of the southeast of the park. As well, guests and stuff would potentially get lost if I put a path that had no direct path to the exit in such a northern location in the park. I was pretty happy with how this area ended up looking. I wasn't sure if I had done enough with the river rapids when I had first built it, and I felt like I probably could have maybe gone into the hill a little bit or something. But when I was done, I really felt that staying above ground, aside from the tiny little tunnel that's on the top of the hill, was actually the better choice. I then decided I wanted to build just sort of like a little food court on this island, as I needed another one. And this was going to be the island that contained like the wooden fort castle, kind of a callback to Forest Frontiers. But Also on the island, I wanted to have a couple of other like sort of small structures, like sort of a different style of kingdom, I guess you could say, like sort of a small castle and then several outposts. Put a yellow balloon for the yellow roller coaster. I then changed the direction of the water tricycles as I wanted them to be more in that sort of open area. They were sort of bunched up on the other side. I then start on the final castle, and this one pretty much just surrounds the merry-go-round. I wanted to do something in this area. I just wasn't really sure what, and I didn't want to do just more forest because that's what I was going to do in the furthest area of the park. And so I felt that one more little castle would sort of round off and balance the area out, though coming up with a design that I could fit in this area that wasn't going to be something huge and sprawling was a different story. I was considering putting like a giant castle, like the first entrance castle with multiple levels and burying, the roller coaster entrances underground, and but in the end I decided that it just wasn't worth it. I just didn't care all that much about this particular area of the land. Like it's on the far end of the park. And so I didn't think that a huge, complicated castle was necessary or even really maybe a good idea so far away from the entrance. I would say overall, this build, I put a lot less focus on rides and a lot more focus on the scenery, as I felt that the park as is was pretty much good enough. It just needed a few extras like that additional roller coaster. I do build a bobsled roller coaster in a little bit here as well. And just a few flat rides here and there, just to sort of get people moving around the park. The river rapids, but there's builds that I've done of this park where I just pack the rides in like crazy, where there is nowhere you can go, and I've got sprawling paths going in all sorts of different directions. But I think this is a much cleaner build. In terms of what I would want to produce for a video, this is definitely much more what I would want to have out there. I'm definitely happy that I did the second playthrough, even though it did take me a little bit longer to get to the point where I could put this video together, as I did get to like year 6 and stuff on that original playthrough. So I did sink a fair amount of time into that original build, but if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have gotten the idea for this build. So it is what it is. Overall, I'm pretty happy that I did come up with an idea I could plan, architecture that I could actually attack with sort of the sort of grand scheme approach. Now we can do the bobsled coaster here. This was a fun one. Actually, I'm really happy with how this coaster turned out. The trick with the bobsled coaster is you never go up. The only way that you go up is with a helix. So you can doing a helix is a helix up is fine. You'll never crash with a helix up. But otherwise, yeah, you just do helixes and just, you know, link a bunch of helixes together in a whole bunch of different directions, go up and down, you know, and I've always found that these coasters are just ridiculously fun to build. I always love building these things. Yeah, they're so cool. I've never ridden one in real life, but I definitely love building them in RollerCoaster Tycoon. Now I just needed to fill in the rest of the area. There's a lot to tackle in this area. Like I said, it's kind of a mess. You know, you got roller coaster tracks going in and out of the land everywhere. You gotta find them all. So I hunt them all down. I paint them all. I put gates around them all. Very time consuming stuff. I saved this part of the land for last because I was really honestly not looking forward to getting to this particular portion. It's a mess. You know, I think I got like annoyed with it, and I went back to the piece of land that I was happy with. That one roller coaster is pretty cool though, the Mobius one. Oh, claustrophobia and agoraphobia crashed a whole bunch on me. Like 3 times in a row they crashed near the end of the playthrough when I was just doing the theming and stuff, and you know, throwing the gravitron down. I can't remember when it happens, but it happens a few times. I think I cut out a couple of them, but some of them got in because I was in the middle of building. And yeah, brutal. You know, like I had avoided them crashing pretty much for the entire playthrough, and then all of a sudden at the end, they just started crashing like crazy, as they are notoriously known to do. For the Gravitron, I put another little, like, sort of outposty building, a few more Roman stuff to tie the two together. And then it was just a matter of going through, throwing in some random fences, trees, just making these areas not look, you know, like they're completely the wilderness, you know, going for the wilderness look, but you definitely want it to have like the appearance of theme park though, which fences are great for that. You know, especially like the wooden fence and stuff. It just gives the appearance that, you know, you're out in the middle of nowhere, but you're still not supposed to go there because, you know, that's staff only area. Nice big trees in the alpine. Wasn't super happy that I got red for that coaster though. I would have liked something else, but I abide by the challenge. few finishing details, and that's pretty much it. Lots of little trees though. So that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed this build, and here is the end result.